green member in a green jumper. Yeah. Oh, sorry, I thought it was green. Yeah. Yeah.
Let's see what color the jumper is. Let's see. All right. Moment of truth. Everyone's looking.
Guys, it looks green. Send.
It is. Is it green?
Ben, it's an absolute displeasure to see me standing.
tell.
It's absolute.
Did he just say it's an absolute displeasure? I mean, come on. What is going on here? Show some respect. The guy shows up to your school to teach you, to debate you. He doesn't have to be there. Ben Shapiro is the #1 conservative podcast in America. And this punk is insulting him and saying displeasure. That's not even clever. There's got to be a more clever way to... Oh my gosh. Who do they let into this school? Who are these kids who are enrolled in Oxford Union? Unbelievable. Don't they have etiquette? Don't British people have etiquette? I mean, look, Australia, South Africa, whatever, but British people are supposed to have etiquette. Sheesh.
I will get to my question, however.
Thank you for coming anyway.
My displeasure. Now, I'll repeat.
Again, he doubles down on the joke. It wasn't, I mean, he got a few laughs the first time and he's got nothing else in the tank, so he went with it again. You could already tell that his question is going to be idiotic. You could already tell that his IQ, I mean, I don't know how these kids get into the school. I don't know what they're teaching there. I don't know what they're feeding them, what's in the water over there in the Oxford Union University, but this is going to be, I can already tell this is going to be bad. I mean, I did watch this, but I knew from the previous time that I watched it that just such an unclever, pathetic way to greet somebody. You already know that he has diminished intellectual capacity, and this is going to be just a brutal Ben Shapiro takedown. But let's watch it anyways.
The question that I sought to ask you. You have recently been discussing a lot about the history of the occupation of Palestine. I will call it that. I know you will oppose that, but I will call it that. The occupation of Palestine.
The whole thing, right? Just to be clear?
The entirety of Palestine.
Thank you.
You may accuse me of genocide if you wish. That is not my position.
Sure. And I will, but go ahead.
Anyway, so the point about the occupation of Palestine, you have released multiple videos. You have essentially made yourself the cheerleader of Israel in a lot of sort of Western media spaces. So I watched some of your videos about the conflict and I found a number of inaccuracies. First of all, you describe in 1920, you refer to Jordan as part of Palestine historically. That has never been the case. There has never been a state of Jordan.
British Mandate Palestine, yes.
That is still not the case. Jordan has never been part or considered part of Palestine. The only time that Jordan has been considered adjacent to Palestine is part of sort of biblical mythology where Transjordan was a reason.
That's wildly inaccurate. The British Mandate had a mandate over all of Palestine, and then they separated off Transjordan and handed it to the Hashemite Kingdom of Jordan.
You will get your chance to reply. Let me finish. Now, the second point that you have phrased constantly and consistently, and it's quite a popular Zionist talking point, is the fact that the Arabs have rejected peace every time it was offered to them. Now, I would like, of course, there's been multiple times where peace has been offered, so let's discuss some of them. The Peel Commission. The Peel Commission entailed expelling multiple Arab families and multiple Arab communities, largely agrarian, from the land in order to create a Jewish state under a colonial authority. Now, I understand, of course, you are a Zionist, so you believe that's desirable. But for the Palestinian farmers, I can imagine they would not have enjoyed that. Number two, you mention that that after 1948, the Arabs had the chance to negotiate and make peace with Israel. Apart from the fact that in 1956, Israel invaded the Sinai in Egypt, unprovoked, purely due to the fact that President Nasser nationalized the Suez Canal. Then you claim that the 1967 war was a war of extermination. But if you will read any trusted and respected historian over the 1967 war, and perhaps you may even decide to read some of the books of Moshe Dayan about the actual conflict, where he describes that Israel actually provoked the conflict and there was no chance of the extermination of Israel. Then you claim that the 1973 war was a war of the destruction of Israel once again, which it was not. It was actually the reclaiming of the Sinai and the Golan Heights, which Israel has illegally occupied. So, you have lied multiple times. I can continue if you would wish, but I would like to ask you the question. When you lie, do you feel shame?
Okay, so.
I'm sorry to pause the middle of the video. outrageous. What's worse, the outrageous disrespect or just the sheer number of lies and misinformation and the lack of education that this kid has? Sheesh. Ready? Who's ready for the buzzsaw response right now? Absolute buzzsaw. Just watch. It's unbelievable.
In order for me to feel shame, I would have to be lying, as opposed to you just being wrong about all of these things, which you are. So let me start from the very beginning of what you said.
I just want to point out, I swear this is the last time I'm going to stop the video in the middle. Look at the kid on the left. He's rubbing his neck feverishly. He knows that he's about to walk into the buzzsaw, and he can't run. I mean, why? Who rubs their neck in the middle while someone else is talking like that? He's scratching his neck like there's no tomorrow, like he has an itch. He's in trouble and he knows it.
Let's try to go through the calendar. British Mandate Palestine was ruled by the British. They carved out Transjordan in 1920, and Transjordan was made into Transjordan with the Hashemite kingdom, which, by the way, is not domestic to the actual Arab Jordans. If you're talking about a colonial outpost, Jordan would be it, since the Hashemite kingdom has nothing to do with the actual Palestinian Arabs who are living in Transjordan. Talking about the Peel Commission. If the idea is that there would have to be a separation of populations in order to effectuate a two-state solution, which you deny, then I was right. Of course, there was a deal on the table. The Jews accepted it. The Arabs rejected it. So you did not actually undermine my case. There should be no deal in the first place.
In his diary states.
Hold on. I listened to your whole bullshit history for like 5 minutes here. So at least let me respond to it. Your entire claim is that the Arabs did not reject peace, and then in your own disquisition, you admitted that the Arabs rejected the Peel Commission plan, which was a separation between the Jews and the Arabs, which gave an extraordinary amount of land to the Arabs. The Arabs then rejected the peace partition plan proposed by the United Nations in 1947. They then proceeded to reject the Oslo Accords in 93. After that, they rejected the Wye River Accords in 98. They rejected Ehud Barak's very generous offer in 2000. They rejected Olmert's very generous offer in 2008. Every single peace deal that has been proposed by Israel or anyone else has been rejected by the Arabs for a very simple reason, which was the very first question I asked you. You do not accept that there should be a Jewish state anywhere in this region. So as long as that's the case, there's literally nothing to argue about. You cannot simultaneously maintain the position there should not be a Jewish state anywhere in the region and then tell me that I'm wrong when I say that the Arabs will not accept a two-state solution. You yourself say that there should not be a two-state solution.
So the first point I'll firstly address the last point that you made about the Palestine and whether this.
Okay, I lied before about not stopping the video in the middle, but I just have to say once, look at this kid. He's got nothing. He's starting to kind of waver. You could hear his voice becomes really shaky. He was just torn apart and dismembered. He's got nothing, but he has a little bit more kind of. He has another. They're allowed to have one or two responses and. He's got to say something, but it's pointless. He should have just said you're right and walked home. But it actually, if you can believe it, by the way, whoever's still watching, it actually gets worse. And if you can believe this, he actually gets more disrespectful, which just shows you how foolish he is. Just watch.
Should be a Jewish state. The point you are making there is you're suggesting that the Arabs will not accept a Jewish state. Well, the reason that the Arabs would not accept the Jewish state is multifaceted.
It's complex.
Let me finish. So, the reason that it's multifaceted is due to a variety of dynamics. The Zionist movement arrived as a settler colonial project, and it is described as that. You can read the books of Jabinsky. You can read Zionist literature from the early 20th century.
Last time I'm pausing it. I like how he quotes Jabinsky. There's no Jabinsky. I don't even know who he's talking about. Jabinsky. Jabotinsky. Does he actually does anyone think this kid went to Oxford Union? I feel like he just kind of snuck into the auditorium. I don't know. I feel like he's came in from the local, I don't know, local pub or something.
It states that it was a colonial project. Now let's address the lies that you mentioned. Let's address the refutation that you made. In 1937, the Peel Commission, if you read the diaries of David Ben-Gurion, he explicitly states that the partition thank you, that the partition was a temporary move to ensure the conquest of the full land. In 1948, there had already been an intercommunal civil war in Palestine, which had seen Jewish defense forces versus the Arab forces. There was already a conflict that preceded 1948. To claim that the Arabs simply rejected the UN partition plan is once again ahistorical. You then make...
They literally rejected it. How could it be ahistorical if they literally rejected it?
If there was a war beforehand...
And once again, you just reject fundamentally the existence of the State of Israel, period. So how can...
To interrupt you, I was told to silence. So I would ask you again, please shut up. My point now, I would like to continue, and you then mention the what was the peace plan you mentioned after?
Okay, which one should we do? Should we do the?
We finished 1948. What after?
Okay, so there was the 2000 peace plan from Ehud Barak.
Okay.
There's the 2008 peace plan from Ehud Olmert. There's the pullout of Israel from Gaza Strip in 2005, handing it over to Hamas.
Let's get the next person up now.
All right. Thank you very much.
One final note, there can be no two-state solution when literally you will not accept the possibility of a two-state solution. That is the end of the story. There is no further discussion.
Let's do the
Brutal. You saw the way he walked back. He was walking in shame. He got a couple of cheap claps from the audience when he cursed, but that's also, I mean, that's just the number one, number two, and number three sign of losing a debate handily when you start to curse. I mean... And he kept talking about respect. This kid was just a mess from the beginning. From the opening bell, we knew he was going to be a mess, and he outperformed our expectations. Probably one of the worst debating displays we've ever seen against Ben Shapiro. Probably in the Oxford Union. I really hope he's not a student there. Just brutal. And just to touch on what Ben Shapiro said, I mean, this kid is basically... Ben Shapiro had to expose him as just not wanting to acknowledge even the idea of a Jewish state of Israel. And that's the problem. See, if he was smart, if this kid or any of these kids were smart, they would acknowledge the right to a homeland, and then they could argue about the borders. And then there'd be a conversation. But they're too distracted and consumed with their hatred for Israel and for the right to a Jewish homeland, for God knows why. I mean, that's a whole nother. I mean, it might be a mental illness. I don't know. It's hard to defend them. But if they just were a little bit smarter, it would be smarter for them to acknowledge the right to a state for the Jewish people, to their homeland, to Israel. If they would just acknowledge that, then they could quibble about the 67 borders, 56, 73, but they're just rejecting outright, and it just makes it actually so much easier for Ben Shapiro to mop and wipe the floors with these pushover kids. It's just... Anyways, wild video, disrespectful, foolish kid. Ben Shapiro just took him to school 5 times over. I hope he went home and watched this, and I hope he's practicing his debate skills. I hope he's reading books finally. He probably never read a book. Anyways, if you like this video, hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you on the next one.